If you have vitiligo, you've probably been handed 100 different ways to treat it. By a family member, by a stranger in the supermarket, by an online advertisement that promised your patches would disappear in 30 days. I've lived with this condition for most of my adult life, and here's what I've learned. Some of that advice doesn't just waste your money, it can actually make your vitiligo worse. So today, I'm walking you through the 5 worst ways to treat your vitiligo, plus 2 more that people often miss out on, and what to do instead. Welcome back to the Vitiligo Experience. If you're new here, I'm Sanjay, and this channel is where I share what I've learned from living with vitiligo and depigmentation for many years. The honest version, not the version someone is trying to sell you. A quick but important note before we start. I'm not a doctor. Everything here is education, drawn from lived experience and from what the evidence actually shows. Nothing in this video replaces a real conversation with your own dermatologist. So please treat it as a starting point, not a prescription. One more thing. Stay with me until number 1 because it's the one closest to my own story and it's the mistake almost nobody warns you about. If this sounds useful, tap subscribe so it can find you again. Let's get into it. Number 5. The promise of an overnight fix is the biggest waste of money and time. It's a revolving door and I've watched so many people get stuck in it. Overnight creams, stacks of supplements, detox protocols, herbal pastes, and the advice of every well-meaning relative and stranger who swears they've got the answer. I understand exactly why it pulls people in. When the patches first appear, waiting feels unbearable, and confident marketing with glowing testimonials speaks straight to that fear. Traditional and faith-based approaches can also give real comfort and a sense of control, and I want to be respectful about that. But here's the honest truth. Nothing erases vitiligo overnight, and no single product reverses it permanently on its own. Some of those herbal and natural pastes are actually caustic, or they make your skin extremely sensitive to light, and they can leave burns, scarring, and blotchy pigmentation that's far harder to manage than the patches you started with. Belief-based systems like homeopathy have never been shown to bring pigment back. And the real danger is when any of this replaces proper care instead of sitting beside it. Every month and every bit of money you pour in here is a month and a bit of money not spent on something that actually works. So be ruthless about evidence. Anything that promises a quick total fix is a warning sign, not a breakthrough. Keep the things that bring you comfort if you want them, but keep a real clinician steering the actual treatment. Number 4, which is equally useless, is being impatient with the things that genuinely do work. Repigmentation is slow, and slow feels like failure. So people switch treatments every few weeks, or they quietly abandon a plan that was actually starting to work. Here's the thing nobody tells you upfront. Progress in vitiligo is measured in months, not days. When you see nothing by week 3, the instinct is to decide it failed and move on. But if you keep switching, no treatment ever gets the runway it needs, so nothing ever gets a fair test. And stopping at the first plateau can undo the gains you'd already made. You end up spread thin across 5 half-tried approaches with almost nothing to show, and that's exactly what hardens into the belief, nothing works for me. So set a realistic timeline with your clinician right at the start, and then judge a treatment over months, not weeks. And do this. Take photos in the same light and the same position every few weeks. Slow change is real change, but it's almost invisible day to day. A photo makes it visible. Consistency isn't the boring part of treatment. Consistency is the treatment. Number 3 seems like an obvious treatment choice at first and something that makes sense on the surface. It is using the sun to fix your white patches. There are 2 ideas here that tempt almost everyone. The first is to tan the lighter skin so it blends in. The second is to sit in the sun, believing it'll switch the pigment back on. Both feel free and natural. And both can backfire. Here's the catch. Your patches have little or no melanin, so they can't tan. They burn. And a sunburn is a skin injury. In vitiligo, injury can trigger brand new patches right at that spot. There's even a name for it, the Koebner phenomenon. On top of that, heavy sun drives a kind of stress in the skin that is part of what fuels the attack on your pigment cells in the first place. And while your patches are burning, the skin around them is tanning and getting darker, so the contrast gets sharper, not softer. Now here's the part that surprises people. Controlled ultraviolet light genuinely does help vitiligo. That's exactly why narrowband ultraviolet B, used as phototherapy, is a recognized treatment. So why is sunbathing on this list? Because the difference between the two is everything. In a clinic, the wavelength is precise, the dose is measured, and it's supervised so your skin never burns. Lying out in the sun is an uncontrolled dose of mixed light, and a single bad burn can wipe out weeks of progress. So if ultraviolet treatment is right for you, get it dosed and supervised. Don't try to do it yourself on a beach towel. Number 2 is self-prescribing prescription medicine. And the big one here is strong steroid creams. In a lot of places, and I'm thinking of much of the Middle East, India, and South Asia, you can walk into a pharmacy and buy a potent steroid with no prescription at all. Add the online pharmacies that'll ship strong creams and even tablets to your door, and treating yourself becomes very, very easy. And look, these medicines do have a real role in vitiligo. That's what makes this so tempting. A friend's cream worked, so you borrow the idea. But used without supervision, on the wrong part of the body, or for too long, potent steroids thin the skin, leave stretch marks and tiny broken blood vessels, and can rebound when you stop. The face, the eyelids, the skin folds, those are the most vulnerable, and they're usually the first places people reach for. Buy it online and it gets worse. Wrong strengths, counterfeit products, and nobody checking for side effects or for how long you should actually be using it. The better move is simple. Let a clinician choose the medicine, the strength, the area, and the timeline, and switch to gentler options where steroids are too risky to use long term. The exact same cream that helps you under guidance can harm you without it. Supervision is the whole difference. And that brings us to number 1, the one closest to me. This mistake is strategic, and it's the one people pour the most years of their lives into. When vitiligo covers a large part of the body, the instinct is still to chase the pigment back, patch by patch, treatment after treatment. And past a certain point, that fight becomes very hard to win. Here's why. When the depigmentation is extensive, often talked about as roughly half the body or more, the pigment cells that are left are simply too few and too scattered to give you an even, lasting result. So people spend years and a lot of money on phototherapy and creams, chasing smaller and smaller returns. And honestly, that constant near miss can be more demoralizing than the condition itself. But there's another path, and it's one that's rarely even offered. For very widespread vitiligo, you can even your skin tone the other way, by gently and deliberately lightening the pigment that remains under medical supervision. And for a lot of people, that brings a relief and a simplicity and a confidence that the endless chase never delivered. It's a considered, medically guided decision. It is not a default. And it is absolutely not a surrender. It deserves the same respect as any plan to bring pigment back. The real lesson here is this. Take an honest reading of how far your vitiligo has spread and then match your strategy to it. For limited, stable vitiligo, going after repigmentation is well worth it. For very widespread vitiligo, a calm, open conversation about depigmentation might open a door that years of chasing pigment never could. I chose depigmentation after 15 years of trying to repigment and wasting enormous amount of money, time and effort into it. Finally, a dermatologist was understanding enough to prescribe me depigmentation. And after around 3 to 4 months into the treatment, I already saw the light at the end of the tunnel. I knew this was the right decision for my case and wished I had done it sooner. It took me around 18 months to be fully depigmented, but since then I feel like I got my life back, and vitiligo seems like a painful, distant part of me. Before the wrap, 2 more that catch a lot of people out, even though they're not always treatment mistakes. The first is treating vitiligo as a skin-only cosmetic thing. Often it isn't. Vitiligo tends to travel in the company of other autoimmune conditions. It's linked to a higher chance of thyroid disorders and celiac disease, among others. And if those go unchecked, an underactive thyroid or undiagnosed celiac disease can quietly affect your energy, your weight, your mood, even growth in younger people, while all your attention is on the patches. So treat your diagnosis as a reason for a broader check, not just a skin appointment. Ask your clinician about screening your thyroid and looking for anything else linked to it. Caring for your patches and caring for the rest of your health are the same project. The second is cover-up tattoos, sometimes sold as medical micropigmentation. The idea of simply coloring the patches in is intuitive, and on vitiligo that's been stable for a long time, it does have a narrow role. But a tattoo is a deliberate skin injury, and remember the Koebner phenomenon from earlier? On active vitiligo, that injury can trigger new patches, so you risk spreading the very thing you were trying to hide. Matching the ink is also a moving target. Your skin shifts over time and tattoo pigment fades to odd tones that are hard to correct and hard to remove. So if you're exploring medical tattooing, only consider it on vitiligo that's been stable for a long stretch, with a specialist who actually works with the condition and after a frank conversation about that Koebner risk. For anything active or still spreading, an adjustable cover-up makeup that you can change is far safer than permanent ink. Now coming at the end of the video, I say goodbye and hope to see you in my next video in this new repigmentation series.